Alright, thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be talking to you about how to find the volume of a rectangular prism. First of all, let's talk about what volume is. Okay, volume is simply finding how much the space of a three-dimensional figure can hold. So in this case, we usually talk about it in number of cubic units. Today we're going to be talking about rectangular prisms. Those are basically boxes. Okay, so the formula for that is going to be volume equals length times width times height. Okay, so we usually say V equals LWH, and they put them all together just as a reminder. Variables next to each other simply mean multiplication. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first example here. Our first example, again, this actually doesn't appear to have any dimensions, but it actually does. Okay, these cubes inside are your cubic units. So each edge that you see here is representing one unit. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So if we want to know what the length is, we know that the length is actually going to be equal to 4. If we want to know what the width is, we can count these right here. That would be the width. The width is going to be 2, because there's 2 edges that make up the width. And then finally, the height, we can count right here. 1, 2. You can see 2 edges there make up the height. And that is actually going to be the 3. Those are actually the 3 dimensions we'll use then to multiply together. So the formula here is volume equals length times width times height. So we're going to take and do volume equals 4 times 2 times 2. And that ends up being 4 equals 8 times 2, which of course then our final answer would be 16. Alright, and that's going to be out of units cubed, and I'll just do U cubed to represent units cubed. Typically they will give you a unit to use. Alright, so let's take a look at the next one then. This next problem is more of a standard look. This is typically what you will see. Some type of rectangular prism, looks like a box, and then they give you the 3 dimensions. So all you need to remember, of course, then is the volume formula, which is length times width times height. It doesn't necessarily matter where or how you plug the values in. Okay, if you remember your properties, this would fall under the commutative property, because the order in which you multiply them isn't going to matter. You're still going to get the same solution. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time going which one is length, which one is width. It's not going to matter. You just need to substitute them in, or really just multiply them together. So it's going to end up being volume equals 12 times 3 times 7. Okay, so in this case, we'll probably have to break up the multiplication and separate it out so that we don't make any mistakes. So we'll start with 12 times 3, and that's going to give us 36. And then off to the side, we're going to have to go ahead and do 36 times 7 to make sure we don't make any errors with our multiplication. So 6 times 7 is 42. You carry the 4, and you get 3 times 7 is 21, plus 4 is 25. So our volume here is going to be 252 units cubed. Okay, so if those were centimeters, you would say centimeters cubed, and so on and so forth. Okay, let's take a look at the next one then. And you can see all they're going to do, and all I'm doing here is just shrinking them and making them different dimensions. That's typically all you'll see. So again, our volume formula is length times width times height. Alright, so we'll go ahead and substitute in our values. That's going to be volume equals 4 times 15 times 2. So we'll break up the multiplication again. We'll say we know that 4 times 2 is 8. We can do that in our head. So 4 times 2 gives us 8, which leaves us then with 8 times 15. So off to the side, we'll figure out what 15 times 8 is. Alright, and that's going to give us 8 times 5 is 40, carry the 4. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. Alright, so the volume for this prism, rectangular prism, would be 120 units cubed. Alright, and then we have one more, and this one actually is a special case. We haven't actually given you a cube yet. A cube also falls under the rectangular prism category. However, you can actually solve it with a different formula. You can still use length times width times height. However, notice they only give you one dimension. And if you think about it, there's a reason for that, because a cube, all of the sides are equal. It's a three-dimensional square. So all the sides are equal. So all they have to do is give you one dimension. So your thought process can be, I can do 8 times 8 times 8, length times width times height, or you can use volume equals side cubed. That's another volume formula you can use specifically for a cube. Since all of the sides are equal, you can just take that number that they give you, 8. If they tell you that it's a cube, then you know you just need to take 8 and multiply it by itself 3 times. So this case, it's going to be volume equals 8 to the 3rd power. So based on exponents, we know we can do 8 times 8 times 8, which will give us our solution. Right? 8 times 8, we should know, is 64. So off to the side, we just need to figure out what 64 times 8 is, and then we will have our volume. So 8 times 4 is 32, carry the 3. 6 times 8 is 48, and then plus 3 is going to be 51. So our final volume here for our cube is going to be 512 units cubed. This has been a quick tutorial on rectangular prisms volume. Thank you for joining me.